Well, the first thing is to ensure that the rescue team members are going to be safe in performing their job. I mean, they're thrust into a chaotic situation and one that's highly volatile and dangerous. So they are risking their lives just going underground, and you want to make sure that you take all steps necessary to protect their safety. Back in 1976 in eastern Kentucky in Letcher County, we had the Scotia mine explosion on March 9th, and there was 15 miners killed. And as the rescue workers were attempting to recover their bodies 2 days later, on March 11th, there was another explosion, and 11 mine rescue workers and federal mine inspectors were killed. So it was a double disaster, and you want to make sure that's why mine rescue work is very difficult. That there is not another ignition source, for instance, so that you have a bunch of rescue workers underground who are killed. That being said, the families obviously want those rescue workers to get in as soon as they can and get to where the miners are located.
How do the rescue teams determine where the trapped miners are? Is there technology they have to avail themselves of that helps them zero in on the greatest chance for preserving life?
Well, Rachel, there is technology. I don't know if it's available for this particular mine. There are some mines in Kentucky, I know, that use tracking devices for each individual miner. It's like a mini GPS system where the mine can tell you on a computer screen that such and such miner is located at the number 4 head drive or, at this conveyor belt. And they know where they are. They can track them throughout their working shift. Whether that's available in this mine, I don't know. And I also don't know, maybe some of your other guests have told you whether or not there are rescue chambers or refuge chambers available in the mine. If they are in place, the company would know precisely where they are for each shift, and they have to be located within 1,000 feet of the shift of the face under federal law. So hopefully they would be able to say if some of these workers survive the explosion, they're in the refuge chamber, and here's where it's located, which obviously would make the mine rescue teams work a whole lot easier.
Tony Alpergard is a former federal mine safety official from the Clinton administration, an expert in these matters. Thank you very much for your time tonight, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will, of course, continue to monitor these rescue efforts that are underway at the Upper Big Branch Mine in Mott Cole, West Virginia. Again, as we know, what we know right now is that 7 workers are thought to have been killed. At least 19 miners are thought to be trapped underground right now. We're told by an engineering consultant who spoke to the Associated Press tonight that there are airtight refuge chambers in this mine. That's what we're hearing from the Associated Press. I can't confirm that from the perspective of MSNBC right now, but that is what we're told by the AP. We, of course, will bring you any updates as they become available. This is an ongoing breaking story. The nation's thoughts and prayers with those families in West Virginia right now. Congress is not in session right now, but one of Washington's favorite things to fight about, a Supreme Court vacancy, appears to be on the horizon. And as such, Republicans are itching to make it as big a political fight as they possibly can this election year. Of course, nothing has happened yet. There's not a nominee or even a vacancy yet. But clearly, Republicans want their next big fight to be about the Supreme Court. Here's the context of them wanting that. In the House, when you vote on something, all you need is half of the House plus 1. You need a simple majority. That's all you need to pass legislation in the House. In the Senate, the rules are the same. You can get things passed with a simple majority, 51 votes. Except in the Senate, if you're in the minority, you can also invoke a special procedural rule that used to not be used very often, which says for this particular item, you need more than 51 votes. You need 60 votes. You need a supermajority in order to get something done. In the Constitution, there's only a couple of things that are considered important enough to require a supermajority, things like ratifying treaties and changing the Constitution and impeachment. But in the Senate, they've decided that Senate rules let them require a supermajority whenever the minority feels like forcing the issue. And it used to be really rare. In the 1950s, it was never used more than twice in any 2-year session of Congress. In the 1960s, it was never used more than 7 times in any 2-year period. But look at how it's been used over the course of, just say for a random period, my lifetime. starting in 1973. As you can see, there's sort of a gentle upward drift in the number of times this rule was used, making it so that a supermajority was needed to get things done in the Senate. It's this sort of gentle drift up, right? But then 2006 happened. And in 2006, Democrats won a majority in the Senate. With that in mind, watch what happens with this infrequently used rule that gives the minority a chance to block a majority vote. Watch what happens starting in 2007, when Republicans suddenly found themselves in the minority. Boing! The filibuster had never been used this way before. It had never been used so frequently before the Republicans found themselves in the minority after the 2006 midterm elections. And ever since then, ever since 2007, Republicans have been acting ahistorically. They have changed the Senate into something it has never been before. In making it so that a simple majority doesn't actually rule anymore, they have done something unprecedented. It's something civics geeks have been hyperventilating about for 3 years now, trying to get the country to realize how important and unprecedented this change is for our democracy. But now, for this expected upcoming vacancy on the Supreme Court, Republicans are thinking about doing something really unprecedented. They're talking about taking their own party's unprecedented action to a whole new level. The only time a Supreme Court nominee has been successfully filibustered in this country was in 1968. President Lyndon Johnson wanted to elevate Abe Fortas from being an associate justice to being chief justice. Now, when LBJ nominated Mr. Fortas to be Chief Justice, Mr. Fortas was already in political trouble for being too close to the president, for advising him on policy matters, for example, for writing his State of the Union address one year, for accepting thousands of dollars in outside payments on top of his Supreme Court salary as well. So Mr. Fortas' nomination was filibustered successfully. He was not allowed to rise to Chief Justice. And the following year, he actually became the first ever Supreme Court justice to resign under threat of impeachment after news got out that he had secretly taken a $20,000 retainer from a Wall Street financier who wound up in prison. That story, that remarkable anomaly from the otherwise totally staid, boring history of the Supreme Court, is the only Supreme Court nominee to have ever been successfully filibustered. The guy who was about to be impeached for taking side money. And now, Republicans are saying straight out of the gate that they may very well filibuster again this year. So the entire history of Supreme Court filibusters in our nation, they say, will be Abe Fortas and then President Obama's nominee this year. And I mean, I suppose it is understandable. I mean, given how extreme the nominee is, who President Obama has... I'm sorry, what? Oh, he hasn't. I'm sorry, President Obama hasn't actually picked anyone yet. I'm sorry. Actually, there's not even a vacancy yet. Oh, never mind, though. Republicans are letting it be known that they may filibuster this nominee who doesn't exist. Republicans are prepared to go to unprecedented lengths to stop this nominee who doesn't exist from filling a vacancy that doesn't exist.
Are you willing to pledge right now that the GOP will not filibuster whoever the president nominates?
It'll all depend on what kind of a person it is. I think the president will nominate a qualified person. I hope, however, he does not nominate an overly ideological person. That will be the test.
Here's the thing. The justice who might retire is John Paul Stevens. He's a liberal. Barack Obama is therefore very likely to replace him with a liberal so that the balance of the court won't change. And frankly, it may be a little unreasonable to expect a Democratic president to replace a liberal Supreme Court justice with, say, a conservative who would move the court dramatically to the right. But who here is willing to bet that being a liberal is going to be enough to meet John Kyle's definition of someone who is so overly ideological that they must be filibustered? Joining us now, someone whose name has been floated as a potential nominee for this seat. I'm dying to know how seriously she's taking that. Senator Amy Klobuchar, Democrat of Minnesota, a member of the House, the Senate Judiciary Committee. Hello.
Well, hello, Rachel.
Thanks for coming in.
But as you see, I'm wearing the wrong color to be on the Supreme Court.
Well, your microphone is black.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's very slimming.
And also, there's all those old speeches of mine that you would find. Remember the Sotomayor wise Latina?
Yeah.
Where I called myself a wise Slovenian. So it's over before it even started.
I don't know if you really got the Slovenian people behind you in America.
Yes,
Could be an unstoppable
it's a small
political
but mighty
bloc.
country. That's right.
Is it flattering to be mentioned? Is it just awkward? Is it both?
No, it is, but I love my job now, and as you know, as you pointed out with the Senate, there's a lot of work to be done there.
Yes.
And I think we need people that are willing to push the envelope to get things done, to work across the aisle and get things done, and I think that we've started to. I remember the last time I was on, you referred to the Senate, do you remember this, as a dysfunction junction?
That's right.
But I will say the train has left the station now. Since we met, well, we passed health care reform, we passed the jobs bill, we passed the extenders, we now have more to do on that, we got the FAA reauthorization, aviation, travel promotion. We're moving. And part of that, and I think part of the answer to the filibuster, as much as I'd like to see reform and hope we do it, but is calling people out. When they slow down the process, when Jim Bunning gives his finger not just to the media but to every employed worker in this country, we called him out. We've started being more aggressive about calling people out when they're doing these things. And if you want to lead to true bipartisanship, I think you have to be honest with the American people about what's happening.
But the Bunning story is I think, a telling one, because it is true